Released in 1997, Anaconda represents a fascinating intersection of Hollywood ambition and B-movie sensibilities. Directed by Luis Lassa, the film follows a documentary crew traveling down the Amazon River who encounter a hunter obsessed with capturing a giant anaconda. What begins as an ecological documentary mission quickly descends into a survival horror scenario. The film's premise, while scientifically dubious, taps into primal fears of nature's unpredictability and humanity's vulnerability in remote environments. With a budget of $45 million, the production values suggest aspirations beyond typical creature features, yet the execution reveals deliberate choices that would define its cult status. The movie's commercial success, grossing $137 million worldwide, indicates it resonated with audiences despite critical panning. The casting of Anaconda reveals much about late 90s Hollywood economics and star power dynamics. Jennifer Lopez, fresh from Selena, brings mainstream appeal as the determined documentary producer Terry Flores. Ice Cube's presence capitalizes on his rising film career following Friday, while Jon Voight's participation as the unhinged hunter Paul Cerrone adds theatrical gravitas. Eric Stoltz, Owen Wilson, and Jonathan Hyde round out an unexpectedly strong ensemble for what could have been a straightforward monster movie. This casting strategy suggests producers understood they needed more than just a giant snake to attract audiences. Each actor brings distinct energy. Lopez's earnest understood they needed more than just a giant snake to attract audiences. Each actor brings distinct energy. Lopez's earnest professionalism contrasts with Voight's scenery-chewing villainy, creating an entertaining tension that elevates the material beyond its creature feature origins. Jon Voight's performance as Paul Cerrone deserves particular analysis as a masterclass. Released in 1997, Anaconda represents a fascinating intersection of Hollywood ambition and B-movie sensibilities. Directed by Luis Lassa, the film follows a documentary crew traveling down the Amazon River who encounter a hunter obsessed with capturing a giant anaconda. What begins as an ecological documentary mission quickly descends into a survival horror scenario. The film's premise, while scientifically dubious, taps into primal fears of nature's unpredictability and humanity's vulnerability in remote environments. With a budget of $45 million, the production values suggest aspirations beyond typical creature features, yet the execution reveals deliberate choices that would define its cult status. The movie's commercial success, grossing $137 million worldwide, indicates it resonated with audiences despite critical panning. The casting of Anaconda reveals much about late 90s Hollywood economics and star power dynamics. Jennifer Lopez, fresh from Selena, brings mainstream appeal as the determined documentary producer Terry Flores. Ice Cube's presence capitalizes on his rising film career following Friday, while Jon Voight's participation as the unhinged hunter Paul Cerrone adds theatrical gravitas. Eric Stoltz, Owen Wilson, and Jonathan Hyde round out an unexpectedly strong ensemble for what could have been a straightforward monster movie. This casting strategy suggests producers understood they needed more than just a giant snake to attract audiences. Each actor brings distinct energy. Lopez's earnest professionalism contrasts with Voight's scenery-chewing villainy, creating an entertaining tension that elevates the material beyond its creature feature origins. Jon Voight's performance as Paul Cerrone deserves Particular analysis as a masterclass in controlled camp. Voight approaches the role with Shakespearean intensity, complete with a questionable accent that fluctuates between Eastern European and something entirely invented. His character's obsession with capturing the anaconda borders on sexual, with lingering shots of the snake's movements and Cerrone's almost sensual descriptions of its power. This subtext transforms what could have been a one-dimensional villain into a complex study of obsession and masculinity. Voight's commitment to the absurdity creates memorable moments, particularly his death scene where he's consumed by the snake while maintaining eye contact with the camera. A moment of pure cinematic madness that has become iconic in cult film circles. The technical aspects of Anaconda reveal both ambition and limitation. The CGI animated snake, while dated by today's standards, represented significant 1997 visual effects investment. The infamous snake POV shots, complete with distorted fisheye lens effects and heavy breathing sounds, create a distinctive visual language that both terrifies and amuses. Practical effects, including animatronic snake heads and jungle sets, demonstrate genuine craft despite budgetary constraints. Cinematographer Bill Butler, known for Jaws, brings professional sheen to the Amazonian setting, using shadow and water effectively to build tension. The musical score by Randy Edelman mixes traditional adventure themes with horror elements, though it occasionally overwhelms scenes. These technical choices collectively create the film's unique aesthetic, simultaneously polished and ridiculous. Narratively, Anaconda follows classic horror adventure structure while subverting expectations through sheer absurdity. The plot progresses through predictable beats: introduction of characters, journey into danger, gradual elimination of cast members, and final confrontation. Yet the execution constantly veers into the surreal, particularly in the third act, where characters survive increasingly improbable scenarios. The snake's behavior defies biological reality, displaying near supernatural intelligence and resilience. This narrative looseness allows for memorable set pieces, including the waterfall escape and the boat in a tree sequence. While criticized as illogical, these moments serve the film's primary purpose, delivering spectacle over coherence. The screenplay by Hans Bauer, Jim Cash, and Jack Epps Jr. prioritizes memorable moments over narrative consistency, creating what critic Roger Ebert called a movie that knows exactly what it is. The film's gender and racial dynamics reflect both progressive elements and 90s-era limitations. Jennifer Lopez's Terry Flores operates as the competent leader, making strategic decisions while male characters succumb to panic or obsession. Her character avoids sexualization common in horror films, focusing instead on professional capability. Ice Cube's Danny Rich provides street-smart pragmatism that contrasts with the academic crew members, though his character occasionally falls into stereotypical urban reactions. The multicultural cast, including Latino, Black, and white characters, creates surface-level diversity, though character development remains uneven. The Amazonian setting, while exoticized, avoids overt colonialist messaging by presenting the river as equally dangerous to all outsiders. These elements make Anaconda more culturally interesting than typical creature features of its era. Cinematically, Anaconda exists within multiple traditions: the creature feature, the jungle adventure, and the disaster film. It references classics like Jaws in its Predator as force of nature approach, while incorporating elements from King Kong in its capture and transport narrative. The film also participates in the 90s trend of nature fights back movies following Jurassic Park's success. However, Its tone distinguishes it from these predecessors, embracing humor and self-awareness that prevent it from taking itself too seriously. Director Luis Llosa balances genuine suspense with moments so outrageous they become comedic, creating a unique viewing experience that audiences either embrace or reject entirely. This tonal juggling act explains both its critical dismissal and enduring popularity as a so-bad-it's-good classic. The legacy of Anaconda extends far beyond its initial release, spawning sequels, parodies, and cultural references that continue decades later. The film's iconic moments, Voight's wink, the snake POV, the waterfall escape, have been memed and referenced across internet culture. Its success demonstrated the commercial viability of high-concept creature features, influencing subsequent films like Lake Placid and Snakes on a Plane. The direct-to-video sequels, while diminishing in quality, maintained interest in the franchise through the 2000s. More importantly, Anaconda occupies a special place in guilty pleasure cinema, films enjoyed precisely for their flaws rather than despite them. This cultural position makes it ripe for rediscovery by new generations seeking entertainment that doesn't demand intellectual engagement. Analyzing Anaconda through academic lenses reveals surprising depth beneath its ridiculous surface. The film explores themes of obsession through Saron's quest, environmental anxiety through the crew's documentary mission, and human vulnerability in the face of nature's power. The snake functions as both literal threat and metaphor for uncontrollable forces, whether natural, psychological, or professional. The documentary within the film structure creates meta-commentary on truth versus entertainment, particularly relevant in our media-saturated age. While these themes aren't developed with sophistication, their presence elevates the material above mere exploitation. This combination of high and low elements makes Anaconda fascinating for film scholars studying how popular cinema negotiates serious ideas within commercial constraints. Ultimately, Anaconda succeeds precisely because it understands its own limitations and embraces them. The film delivers exactly what its premise promises: giant snakes, jungle danger, and over-the-top performances, all executed with technical competence and complete lack of pretension. Its enduring appeal lies in the sincerity. The cast and crew commit fully to the absurdity, creating an experience that's both thrilling and hilarious. In an era of cinematic universes and self-serious blockbusters, Anaconda reminds us that movies can simply entertain without deeper meaning. Yet, paradoxically, its very lack of artistic ambition has granted it artistic significance as a perfect specimen of Hollywood's B-movie tradition. At first glance, Men of War appears to be another generic 1990s action vehicle for Dolph Lundgren, following the predictable trajectory of a mercenary-for-hire narrative. However, director Perry Lang's film establishes its unique identity immediately through its Southeast Asian setting and surprisingly nuanced opening act. The film introduces Nick Gunnar, played by Lundgren, not as an invincible super soldier, but as a weary veteran whose moral compass has been eroded by years of conflict. This initial character establishment proves crucial, as it sets up the film's central tension between professional detachment and human empathy. Unlike many action protagonists of the era, Gunnar begins the film already questioning his life choices, creating an unusual psychological depth for what might otherwise be dismissed as pure exploitation cinema. The film's narrative structure deserves particular attention for how it subverts genre expectations. Rather than moving directly into explosive action sequences, Men of War dedicates substantial screen time to the recruitment and training, of Gunnar's mercenary team. This deliberate pacing allows for character development among the ensemble cast, including memorable performances from B.D. Wong and Charlotte Lewis. Each team member represents a different perspective on mercenary work, from cynical pragmatism to desperate economic necessity. This diversity creates a microcosm of post-Cold War military dynamics, where former soldiers from various backgrounds find themselves adrift in a world that no longer needs their specialized skills but continues to create markets for their violence. Cinematographer Ron Schmidt employs a visual language that distinguishes Men of War from its contemporaries. The film's color palette shifts dramatically between sequences, with the sterile blues and grays of corporate boardrooms contrasting sharply with the vibrant greens and earth tones of the Southeast Asian jungle. This visual dichotomy reinforces the film's thematic exploration of civilization versus wilderness, order versus chaos. Particularly effective are the handheld camera sequences during the training montage, which create a documentary-like intimacy with the characters. The cinematography never glamorizes violence, instead presenting combat as chaotic, messy, and psychologically damaging, a significant departure from the stylized action of many 1990s films. The film's central moral dilemma emerges when Gunnar's team discovers their mission's true nature: to violently displace indigenous people from their island home for corporate mining interests. This revelation transforms what appeared to be a straightforward military operation into a complex ethical quandary. The screenplay, written by John Sayles and Ethan Reif, carefully avoids simplistic moralizing. Instead, it presents competing perspectives: the mercenaries' need for payment versus the islanders' right to their homeland, corporate greed versus local tradition. This ethical complexity elevates Men of War beyond typical action fare, forcing both characters and viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about complicity in systemic exploitation. Dolph Lundgren's performance as Nick Gunnar represents one of his most psychologically nuanced roles. Unlike his iconic portrayal of Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, Lundgren here plays a character wrestling with profound moral ambiguity. His physical presence remains imposing, but it's the moments of vulnerability, particularly in scenes with Charlotte Lewis's character, that reveal unexpected depth. Lundgren conveys Gunnar's internal conflict through subtle physical cues: hesitation before violent acts, pained expressions when witnessing civilian suffering, and weary resignation when confronting his own moral compromises. This performance demonstrates that action stars of the era were capable of greater emotional range than they were typically allowed to display. The film's treatment of indigenous characters warrants critical examination. While Men of War avoids the most egregious stereotypes of noble savages, it still operates within certain problematic colonial frameworks. The islanders are largely presented as passive victims rather than active agents in their own story, with their culture serving primarily as moral backdrop for the mercenaries' redemption arc. However, the film deserves credit for at least attempting to give voice to marginalized perspectives, particularly through supporting characters who articulate the human cost of corporate expansion. This representation, while imperfect, was relatively progressive for mid-90s action cinema and reflects growing awareness of indigenous rights issues. From a historical perspective, Men of War serves as a fascinating artifact of post-Cold War anxiety. Released in 1994, the film captures the uncertainty of a world where traditional military structures were dissolving, creating a vacuum filled by private security forces and corporate interests. The mercenaries in the film represent the human debris of this geopolitical shift, highly trained professionals with no clear place in the New World Order. Their struggle mirrors real-world concerns about the privatization of warfare that would become increasingly relevant in subsequent decades. In this sense, Men of War proves surprisingly prescient, anticipating debates about military contractors that would dominate discussions of 21st century conflicts. The film's action sequences merit analysis for their tactical realism and psychological impact. Unlike the spectacular, physics-defying set pieces of many contemporary action films, Men of War presents combat as exhausting, terrifying, and morally corrosive. The jungle warfare sequences emphasize disorientation and fear rather than heroic triumph. Weapons jam, plans fall apart, and characters make fatal mistakes. This approach creates genuine tension and stakes. As viewers understand that any character could die at any moment, the violence has consequences that extend beyond physical injury, with several characters experiencing psychological breakdowns that the film treats with surprising seriousness for the genre. Perhaps the film's most significant achievement is its exploration of redemption within an amoral framework. Gunnar's journey from detached mercenary to principled rebel follows a carefully constructed arc that avoids sentimentality. His transformation occurs not through sudden enlightenment, but through gradual exposure to the human consequences of his actions. The film suggests that redemption is possible even for those deeply complicit in violence, but it comes at tremendous cost and requires complete rejection of previous value systems. This nuanced treatment of moral rehabilitation distinguishes Men of War from simpler tales of heroism, presenting ethical growth as a painful, complicated process rather than a dramatic revelation. In conclusion, Men of War deserves reevaluation as more than just another 1990s action film. Its thoughtful exploration of mercenary ethics, nuanced character development, and prescient political commentary elevate it above its B-movie origins. While imperfect in its execution and occasionally constrained by genre conventions, the film demonstrates surprising ambition in addressing complex themes through the action format. For students of cinema, it offers valuable insights into how popular genres can engage with serious ethical questions. For general audiences, it remains an entertaining yet thought-provoking viewing experience that challenges assumptions about what action movies can achieve thematically and artistically.